Good morning, brothers and sisters. So I'll be honest, it's been a while since I've given a talk, and I wouldn't say that I'm a greatest speaker by any sense of the imagination, but it's a little nerve-wracking being up here, but I'll try my best not to stutter. So today I've been asked to give a talk about the devotional given by David A. Bednar on Christmas Day of 2011. He gave this devotional to the missionaries of the Provo, Utah MTC. And the name of this devotional was The Character of Christ. And his devotional was over an hour long, so for time's sake I chose a couple of the points that stood out to me the most to talk about. So starting out, early on in his talk, Brother Bednar recalls a time when he was a member of the 70, and he was attending a weekly training session which was presided by Elder Neil L. Maxwell. And from this training, he recalls a quote that Elder Maxwell gave, and the quote was, "There would have been no atoning sacrifice without the character of Christ." So that leads to the question, what is the character of Christ? And Bednar had the same question, so he recalls that after this training he pondered on this quote and he researched about it. And he wanted to learn about what character was in the relationship of Christ's character to his atonement and how it related to us as disciples of Christ. And as he searched, he found character to be defined as moral qualities strongly developed, strikingly displayed, and consistently lived. And with that thought, I was thinking about how would you define Christ's character? It would be pretty difficult to give one simple answer for who he was. And one thought that came to mind was simply perfect. He had a perfect character that we try to emulate. But I think Elder Bednar gave one that is much more elegant than that. He says, "The character of Christ is that he turns out in compassion and love to others, when the natural man in you and me would turn inward and be selfish and self-centered." Bednar goes on to say this character can be seen all over or through the Savior's actions throughout the New Testament. And he also gives a couple examples of Christ's character. But my favorite one, which he shared, was the event of when the high priest came to arrest Jesus. And in the middle of this, Peter cuts off one of the guards' ears as they come to arrest him. And after he does that, Jesus decides to heal him. And so Brother Bednar gives a good timeline leading up to this moment to showcase how powerful this is. And I'll give you a quick summary. He reminds us that up to this point, Jesus had suffered so much already. He had just suffered in the garden, bleeding from every pore, taking on the sins and sorrows of the world. Only to come out and find that his apostles had fallen asleep while he was in the garden, and when he had counted them to stay awake with him. And beyond that, he also had another apostle betray him. So he's had 4 of his apostles struggle to be what he needs them. So back to this moment, he's getting arrested. He knows he's about to die. He knows his time has come. And he has suffered more than any other man has suffered or will ever suffer. And his support from his apostles has not exactly been coming through. But even after all that, in the midst of being arrested and to be taken to his death, he's not focusing on himself. He's focusing on this guard in pain. And he chooses to heal him and he should, and any other man, would not be focusing on someone else. I doubt that we could focus beyond anything of our coming death. So this is just an amazing example of Christ's character. And this is an amazing quality that Christ has and something that we should strive for. So the question remains, how can we move towards Christ and try to develop a Christ-like character? This can be answered by, if you're jumping back to the definition that Elder Bednar gave. Christ's character is to turn out when the natural man in you and me would turn inward. Bednar continues to quote Mosiah 3:19. The natural man is an enemy to God, and has been from the fall of Adam, and will be forever and ever. So, what's stopping us from Christ's character is the natural man. The natural man is an enemy to God. So, that means in order to have Christ's character, a Christ-like character, we must put off the natural man. And adding some humor to his talk, Elder Bednar compares the natural man to simply the Cookie Monster. Now, I'm going to save all of you the pain and, more importantly, me the embarrassment of trying to mimic the Cookie Monster voice he does. But he compares the Cookie Monster to the natural man because he's indulgent. He simply, and he's not subtle about it either. He wants what he wants right then, no matter what it takes. The Cookie Monster is completely turned inward, not focusing on anyone but himself. And he says that you will never find the Savior doing this. He is always turning outward and focusing on others before himself. Now, this dilemma of the natural man is one I'm afraid I'm all too familiar with. I can find it really easy to focus on myself and completely ignore the rest of the world. It can be quite tempting at times. But I continue to strive to beat it and turn outward and focus on others when I can. And thankfully, one of my biggest wins over the natural man recently is deciding to serve a full-time mission. Now, for most of my life, I always thought that I would serve mission, and I always wrote it off in my mind that it's just something I'm going to do. But it wasn't until after I'd graduated high school and left off to BYUI for a semester before I really realized what the reality of that decision to attend a mission really meant. And so I had a constant internal battle within myself I was trying to determine whether or not to go. And the natural man in me was really pushing hard, using my doubts and fears. Like, if it was even worth spending 2 years of my time to go focus on other people, or the fact that I have a real difficulty talking to people that I don't know, or just giving up the fact that I'd be giving up a lot of freedoms. I mean, at this point, I was in college. I was moving on with my life. I'd settled in. I was making friends and really enjoying life. And I won't lie, sometimes these thoughts did get to me, and I'd often get really close to the edge of calling it, if not going. But every time I got close to that line, a quote from President Monson would ring in my mind every time, saying, "Every worthy, able young man should prepare to serve a mission. Missionary service is a priesthood duty and obligation the Lord expects of us who have been given so very much. Young man, I admonish you to prepare for serving as a missionary." And every time I thought of that, I couldn't deny that that's something I should follow. I have been so blessed in my life to be given the family that I have, the home life that I have. I have been blessed with more than a lot of other people have. So eventually, with a lot of thought, prayer, and personal reasoning, I came to the point in which I decided to go. And now here I am, a week away from starting home MTC. And I'm absolutely grateful that I was able to win that fight and decide to go. As I've prepared to serve, I've learned that a lot of my fears and doubts, while they're justified, they're not a reason to stop, to shy away from the mission. But anyway, back to my final point. The last point I want to talk about from Bednar's talk is about true conversion. During his talk, he's speaking to a congregation of missionaries just about to be sent off into the mission field. So his message to them was really something that I felt I could focus on, because I'm almost in that same point. He says, this mission is not about you. It's not about what you want. Things that you want to be happening on this mission is the natural man in us. After which Bednar gives some of the missionary desires that which missionary would have in his Cookie Monster voice, saying, "I want baptism now. I want investigator now." But he says, but those thoughts that we have, that's what we want. But we need to focus on more of what Christ wants. He says, if you get out of the way and turn outward, you will see and he will teach them the things that you and they need to know. So this goes back to developing a Christ-like character. He teaches that through their teaching, they build their testimonies. But testimonies are not enough. Even with a testimony, we can fall off. We can fall away from the church and from God. It is only through true conversion that we can stand. Being converted unto the Lord, he says that conversion is turning away from the natural man and getting rid of the Cookie Monster. The degree that we turn away and turn outward is an indicator of our conversion unto Christ. The more that we focus not on ourselves, but what Christ wants for us and wants for the world, through that our conversion can come true, and we may stand on our own footing, even when the rest of the world is telling us no. So, as I prepared for a mission, I have seen this same message come up time and time again, that the best way to reach people is to forget yourself and be a tool in God's hand. To teach, not to teach, but to focus on the Lord and what he wants. Now, as Elder Bednar says in his talk, he says he doesn't want to minimize what the importance of being able to teach in that skill. But he says that he has had the opportunity to talk to a lot of new converts. And what those converts say when he asks them why they let missionaries come in and teach them, it's almost a universal answer that says they don't let them come in and they don't let them keep coming back because of the way they teach. Because he says that new missionaries almost have a really hard time knowing what they're talking about and can mix things up a lot. But he says they let them come back, not because of the way they teach, but the way that they make them feel when they're in their presence. So, if we can learn and strive to have a Christ-like character and become truly converted unto the Lord, then we can help strengthen our connection with God and with those around us, that we may be what Christ needs us to be, what he wants us to become. So, brothers and sisters, I want to close my talk by sharing a quote and my testimony. This quote, I feel, pretty much sums up the point of Christ's character and why it's important. It's from Elder Jeffrey R. Holland. It says, "People do not join the church because of what they know. They join because of what they feel and what they see and want spiritually. Our spirit of testimony and happiness in that regard will come through to others if we let it. As the Lord said to Alma and the sons of Mosiah, 'Go forth, that ye may show forth good examples unto them in me. And I will make an instrument of thee in my hands unto the salvation of many souls.'" Alma 17:11. I testify that this church is the true church. I know that as I head out into the mission field, that I will be doing what the Lord wants of me. I will be doing his work that I may bring others to Christ. And I know that throughout my mission and throughout my life, if I will work towards having a Christ-like character, putting off the natural man and turning outward to those around me, that I will feel God's love and become closer to him. And I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.